Hello, and welcome to this week's podcast of Friends That Carry On. We're excited to have someone in studio today to do an interview. But before we get to that, I want to go over how you can get to Friends That Carry On. Obviously, we're at www.friendsthatcarryon.com. We also can be reached at social medias, Facebook and Instagram at friendsthatcarryon.com. And our fledgling YouTube channel as well. So there's not a lot there yet, but we're hoping to get there. And I assume that's at friendsatcarryon.com too, correct?
I do believe.
I believe so. So today in the house, before we introduce our guest, we have the friends, starting with
Eric Fargo,
Brian Romine,
And Tony.
And I'm Jim Scott. And today we are excited to have in-house a longtime friend, college fraternity brother, and now YouTube sensation, Beau Ouimette, a.k.a. the Aquachigger. So, Beau, welcome to the podcast. I'm going to sort of let Eric take over from here, but before I do that, maybe tell us a little bit about you're a relic hunter extraordinaire, and why don't you sort of give us a little background on how you got into that?
Well, I don't think I would actually say I'm like a relic hunter extraordinaire, but I have been relic hunting for many, many years. Started probably 40 years ago, right here in Shepherdstown. And so, yeah, I'm pretty good at relic hunting. I enjoy it, but I like to think of myself more of an explorer and a storyteller now with what I do with relic hunting and going out and in the outdoors and just doing things that I can share with other people. So, does that make sense?
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
What a great
That's
place
awesome.
to get started in Shepherdstown, all the history.
Yeah, Shepherdstown is just loaded with history. I mean, we're right at the bottom of the Shenandoah Valley. Harper's Ferry is just down the road. The soldiers, Civil War history is just incredible. Colonial history, all kinds of stuff happened in Shepherdstown and in the surrounding area. Yeah, I was blessed, being here, growing up in this area, and having the opportunity to really hone my skills.
Did this area, do you think that had an impact in kind of creating the excitement that kept you doing what you've been doing for so long?
I think so, yeah, especially with the metal detecting side of it, because there was so much to be found here. And that really keeps you going when you do well. I've been to many parts of the country where you just don't really find a lot of stuff. I mean, you find things, but not really cool old things. So I think this area really kind of rooted me and really let me develop that love for searching for history, artifacts and telling a story.
Very cool.
That's cool.
All right. Well, Eric, you want to take it away there, man?
Well, I'm going to ask the $64,000 question that you get asked 64,000 times, right? Where did the name Aquachigger come from? This is it's an easy question, but it takes me forever to answer it. Okay. Aquachigger, aqua water chigger. A chigger is it's a little insect that is on land, okay? And you walk through the tall grass and it gets on you and it bites you and it makes you itch. One day I was in a pond searching for artifacts. And when I came out of the pond, I was covered with these welts. And it's a type of insect that lives in the water. I can't remember the name, but it's called duckworms or something like that. And swimmers itch. You can get it in salt water. You can get it anywhere. So anyway, I come out of the water. I'm covered with these welts, and it itches like crazy for days. I was trying to explain this to a friend of mine, Dan, and it was taking me forever. And he kind of cut me off and said, "Oh, you mean like?" Well, let me back up a second. I was trying to tell him how they felt and looked like chigger bites. Mm-hmm. And so he basically just said, "Oh, like aquachiggers." And that was a word I've never heard before.
Boom, boom, light went off.
Exactly. Right. It was a unique word.
Mm-hmm.
So, I just kind of went with it, and people started calling me Aquachigger.
But like I said, it was a long story to get to the, I got bit in the water and chiggers.
That's a great story.
I love it.
It's a much cooler sounding name than duckworms.
I've been called worse.
I wonder if Duckworms would have as big a YouTube channel as you do, right?
I like it. Yeah, duckworm.
Duckworms.
Like that.
Well, you may want to grab that URL, duckworms.com.
Now, how far? Because I know, and just knowing you from college, and I knew you were into the outdoor stuff, fishing, exploring caves, all that type of stuff, and then obviously were either already in the metal detector, or got into it. But at what point did the Aquachigger nickname come? Were you still just doing it for fun or whatever, or had you actually started the YouTube channel, and then that came at the same time, or that was just an old nickname, and hey, this is a catchy thing to use?
I think it probably started just about the time I started YouTube, which was 10, 12 years ago. I mean, I was posting online in a lot of the forums, relic forums and whatnot, and there are pictures out there. I actually took pictures of myself with these Aquachiggers, but I don't know if I was actually on YouTube yet.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
My mother's from Arkansas, so I know what a chigger is.
Yeah, I mean, chicken, they're everywhere, and they're here. I mean, you can go out along the river, and during the summer, and when you get back home, all of a sudden you realize that around, especially like where your clothes are tight around your belt and stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, they just tear you.
Okay,
up.
we're gonna have to move on.
Like
I'm
crazy.
starting to get itchy.
or the Carolinas, or I remember.
They're everywhere.
Yeah,
They're everywhere. They're everywhere. They're everywhere.
They're not in here.
they're not in here.
At the moment.
I brought some with me.
So why videos? Why? What made you go to video? What made you want to video it in the first place?
I mean, that's a great question. I was very active in the online forums, like I was saying earlier, the relic hunting forums and whatnot. But there was a lot of problems with the moderators who were not very. It's hard to. It was not a friendly place. It became a lot of the forums at the time, 10 years ago, they became somewhat unfriendly. If you were not in the cliques, in a clique that with the moderators, it was fun for a while, but it became not fun. Mm-hmm. I had no control over what people said, and it was just very frustrating. And I discovered with YouTube, I actually found the camera that I started with in the river in Shepherdstown. Yeah, believe it or not.
I think that was mine.
Obviously, the Potomac, right?
Yeah, it was just downriver from here, and I picked it up, and I just started doing some video. Very, very, that was terrible. But yeah, so I posted that to YouTube, and I kind of discovered that I had full control over everything. If someone was being a jerk, you can get rid of them on YouTube. They don't.
Which was my next question:
Yeah.
Why YouTube?
Exactly, and then it's I have, as a YouTuber, you have full control over your channel. You can let it go wild if you want to let it go wild, or you can keep it family friendly, which I do with mine.
Oh, I have pretty wild.
No, I don't. Trust me, when the camera's not on, yeah, it gets wild, okay? But I try to keep it very family friendly because kids, for some reason, love me.
Right.
If I see that everywhere I go, it's always little kids.
Well, you're a history professor.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'll be driving down the road, down in the Carolinas, and all of a sudden I'll look over and there'll be like a car beside me, and these kids are screaming out the windows at me, waving.
Totally get
They
it.
just recognize me. Of course, I drive kind of a truck that,
Right.
I've shown on my videos, and it's very kind of unique. But yeah, so I try to keep it family friendly. I have a complete control on YouTube. You can block people on YouTube where they don't even know they're blocked. So they're making these nasty comments to you, to other people, trying to destroy the community that you're trying to build on YouTube, and they don't even know they're blocked.
Trying to tell you how to do your job.
Well, not so much that. I mean, I can take that.
Right.
I don't have a problem with that. But trolls are trolls, and they just want you to get mad and lose control.
So you have quite a following. How do you manage, kind of combing through that and finding the individuals that might be making those negative comments? That's a lot. Well, it seems
it is. I mean, I have 1,200 videos. It feels like 12,000.
Couple zeros.
Kind of a joke.
That's Fargo math.
I have 1,200 videos, and people are commenting on those all the time. Okay, but YouTube has there is set up so that you can put in keywords that will filter the comments. So all the cuss words I can think of are filtered. All the derivations of the way they spell cuss words are filtered, which is good because you can keep the channel family friendly, but it's bad because those are really the only comments I get to see, because it gets filtered. I look at it, do I let it go or do I delete it? So I get stuck reading mostly those comments. When I post a video, and I post videos almost every night, I try to, stick around and answer questions, for people for an hour or two. But it's really impossible to really closely monitor the channel other than using those keywords. But I do the best I can, and I can filter out a lot of that stuff. And YouTube has really gotten good with figuring out comments that are disruptive, even if they're not using cuss words and stuff like that. I don't know how they're doing it, but they're getting filtered, and I have to, approve them or, delete them. But it keeps, I'm able to keep a fairly, are you there? Mm-hmm. Sorry. Fairly, family-friendly environment, and that's my goal with my channel.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. And back to the kids part and why, the kids are drawn to you. My kids love it. The treasure hunting aspect of it, the discovery. I can totally get. I can remember being a kid and having the cheap, $3 metal detector out on the beach, and it was just exciting, the thrill of maybe finding something. And even if you dig up a little tiny piece of metal from an old Coca-Cola can, it was just the excitement of digging it up. So I can totally get that.
Yeah, and that's the way I am. I can remember being a kid too, and going looking for eggs from the chickens in the barn. I mean, it was like the most fantastic thing to look for these eggs, and it was so exciting. And I could barely walk at the time. I was that young, but yeah, kids love that. And I try to have not. I'm trying to track the kids into being excited about that, getting outside and enjoying the outdoors, but also the adults, because there's so many adults who have never been exposed to the outdoors. I mean, when I'm making these videos, I'm thinking that everyone knows what an oak tree is and why there's galls on the oak tree, But so many people don't. They don't have a clue, and they want to learn. They want to know about these things, but not maybe in a classroom setting. So I'm always trying to throw out little bits and pieces of knowledge that I have, and I don't have a lot, but I have some. And so that, I think it's good for the children, but it's also good for the adults, because, a lot of people live in the city and they just don't know what trees are,
Well, it sure has made me look at the lay of the land differently just by watching you. You see something, a bump in the ground, you never pay attention to it until you're taught to. You know what I mean? Which I've kind of learned from you. What was there at one point? What's under there? Why did that get there? Why's that rock there? That looks out of place.
It's kind of funny because I had something happen just a couple of days ago that was kind of like that, where I was out detecting with a friend of mine, and we were exploring. It was kind of a mountainous area, and I came upon what was clearly an old graveyard. And most of the stones were either knocked over, but they're small, just little field stones sticking up. But I could see a pattern in these stones, and I knew immediately it was a colonial era graveyard. My buddy's there, and he's like, he didn't see it. He didn't know. He didn't pick up on the clues. So it was good that I was able to not only teach him there, but I did a video on that too. What kind? This is out of place. That one stone that's sticking up like that shouldn't be like that. Someone did that. Why is it there? We start looking. There's tons of there's 20 stones there, at least 20 graves, and you can see the depressions. Mm-hmm. Where people were buried. Right. And it's colonial era stuff.
And where was this
1800. That was in near Gore, Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Neat.
Yeah, Patsy Cline's house, one of her houses, did a video on that. Yeah, it's coming up.
Wow.
Yeah, I just saw that on your feed on Facebook. So that was this gravesite you were talking about was on her old property.
Yeah, the gravesite was about 300 yards from where she spent. Well, I guess it was her grandmother's house, and she spent several years growing up there. But I don't think it's related to that because it's much older than Yeah, right.
Well, that's neat. And getting back just a little bit to the kids, I think you have a unique quality in telling the stories. You'd mentioned that earlier, but even just there in that little tidbit about how you saw the way, the outline of the topography and the one rock and so forth. And I think that's what attracts people, or what's made you successful there, is your way to tell the story and explain it in a way that people can understand and relate to. And anyhow, that's just my observation, but obviously you've had success with it, and that's important. It's definitely a gift. Yeah. But I know with kids, that's important, the storytelling. We to digress just briefly, we're doing a thing called Read Berkeley, and I was actually in the second grade today doing their book orders. And these kids, I mean, the books are, tarantula versus, a different kind of spider, or this whale versus this whale, or so forth, and then a bunch of treasure hunting books and that type of stuff. They just absolutely get enthused, and seeing that enthusiasm, I can only imagine if they're seeing some of the stuff you're digging, or the suspense you're building, and what we're going to dig up when we get here, or under this water, or under this rock, or whatever. I can see why they're really attracted to that.
Yeah. I don't know. Be honest with you, I don't know how it happened with me. Because I've always been very shy. Turn the camera on, I would hide before I started YouTube. But yeah, I'm not sure how it happened, or how I tell the stories, or why people are interested in how I'm telling the stories. But it just seems to work. I mean, people seem to like it for some reason. I don't really understand it.
So how did you?
That's always the way it is, isn't it?
How did you get started? Did you just take this up as a hobby, or did you have any sort of background before you started and became interested?
What?
Well, the I guess the metal detecting and the digs and things of that sort. I mean, when you went to school, were you inspired by anybody? Did you study history? Was there anything that kind of led you to that prior?
Well, I think in the very beginning, as a very young child, I mean, I was always interested in finding stuff. Always, as long as I can remember, been interested in history as well. I was metal detecting, back, when I was in the early teens. I had my first metal detector over 40 years ago. So I've always been really interested in finding stuff. I don't know why. I mean, I have siblings that are not. I've always been interested in history. I have siblings that do not have any interest. I went to Shepherd here. I did study archaeology with Professor Hulse. I did all the field work and lab work and stuff. So I have a pretty good background in understanding what I'm seeing now. I had friends here at Shepherd that are really kind of helped develop my interest in the Civil War stuff here. Jeff Bowers, Digger. Yeah. Who could forget Jeff, right? He still, lives down the road. I haven't talked to him in a couple of years. I need to stop by and see him. But yeah, him and his dad really, it kind of re-sparked a lot of my interest in metal detecting, and yeah. So yeah, there's been a lot of people that have helped me appreciate the history and learn about the history. But I think some of it I was just born with. Nature versus nurture. You have some of it.
One of the things that obviously we're a travel group, and did you ever imagine though when you were 14, 16 years old, where the only places that you were doing it were in the field out by the farm, and now this is giving you an opportunity to travel pretty much all over the world?
Yeah. 10 years ago, I would never have dreamed I would be doing what I'm doing now. I have traveled, prior to 10 years ago. I do a little bit of traveling up and down the coast, but now, I'm traveling worldwide, metal detecting, and I'm doing a lot of social media stuff because of my metal detecting in my YouTube channel. I go all over now. And I never dreamed I'd be doing that. 20 years ago, I could not have imagined myself being able to do anything like that, just because I was so shy. It's amazing how people change.
Where has it
and
taken
I don't know
you?
why.
Where has it taken you? I know you
What do you
can't.
mean? If for travels?
Yeah.
Oh, I tell you, I do a lot of stuff with, different, especially metal detecting manufacturers. I do some work with them, travel different places, but I kind of got hooked up with Garrett Metal Detectors, and they are just super, super great people, great company, and they've sent me all over the place. I've been, just within the last year or two, I've been, to Russia, Italy, England. I spent 3 weeks in Australia, last summer. I just go all over.
So are they identifying these places for you to go, or are you doing that? How do you decide together where to go?
Well, typically what they would do is they would have some type of social, event, some type of like metal detecting rally, okay, that might have 1,000 people attending. And I would go with them, generally speaking, and I'd just be like, signing autographs, taking pictures with people and stuff like that. I mean, it's really easy work for me. You know what I mean? So we do that for a couple of days, but then they would have other things lined up with other metal detecting people and stuff that we might go for a week or 2 weeks and just go metal detecting. And I'm doing my YouTube videos naturally, and they're doing their own thing, and so I don't really have to do any work. I'm not lining stuff up. Makes it so easy
as far as planning your travel.
Yeah, as far as planning those that kind of
that was
travel,
my
I don't
next
really have
question.
I don't have to do anything.
Everything's
done for me.
They
It's
help
really
you
simple.
with taking care of the airfare and the hotels, all that
Everything,
stuff. So you don't have to worry about going through and planning all of that.
No, and it's so nice to not have to worry about that. Now, I do travel on my own, but most of that is like within the United States. I like to drive and I like to camp. I will take off for 3 weeks. This is what I do. I do YouTube. So I can take off for 3 weeks. That's as long as my wife will let me go, though. At the end of 3 weeks, she's calling me. But yeah, I love to just get in the truck and, I sleep in the truck. I never sleep in hotels. I'll put my boat on top. I'll just take off, and I will sometimes have an idea where I'm going. Maybe something I want to do in Arizona. So I'll go to Arizona and do it. But then I'm just kind of free to do what I want to do. I've got a huge fan base from YouTube, so I'm able to, kind of get in touch with people and go to see some places that I would never be able to find on my own. But generally speaking, when I travel, I like to just kind of do my own thing, seat of the pants, have maybe one goal out there and just let it go from there and just take 3 weeks and just be by myself, sleeping in the truck at night, listening to the coyotes in the desert. I just love it all.
So with that spontaneity, what are some things that, obviously things come up that are unexpected, but what are some of the wilder things that wasn't obviously on the itinerary that came up and it's like, whoa, did that just happen?
Well, yeah, I mean, all kinds of weird things. I mean, spending the night in an Anasazi cliff dwelling because I didn't plan very well and didn't have a flashlight and couldn't hike off the mountain, I've done stuff like that where you're just up there and all of a sudden it's like, you have to just spend the night there because it's too dangerous to try to come off the mountain. And I've done stuff like that. I mean, it's stupid. You know what I mean? I just poor planning, but it's spontaneity. I love that.
Right.
The hike just took a lot longer than I thought it would.
So when you're in the cave on a night like that, are you posting to YouTube?
No. I'm just trying to survive. You know what I mean? I don't want anyone to know that I'm just trying to survive.
There's a whole nother show out there that's based on that. If you video yourself surviving, maybe you could rival that show.
I was going to say we need to hook you up with Bear Grylls. The two of you together would probably make a heck of a show.
Yeah, I've had some
royalties
close calls.
on that.
I've done stupid stuff, but I try to be safe because usually I'm by myself, so I do try to be safe. And part of that is not trying to hike off the mountain in the middle of the night, and just basically sitting down with your back against the wall and hope a tarantula doesn't bite you or something.
Do you think you'd travel globally if relic hunting didn't take you traveling? Do you think you would at all, or?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of traveling in my life that is not related to metal detecting or my YouTube stuff. I've traveled all over. But I found that when I can combine the two, the love of travel, because I do like to travel, with a real reason to be there, something I want to learn about and can actually physically touch, I kind of have gravitated toward that kind of travel now. Whereas before it was, let's travel to, France and see some museums and walk around and have a good time. That's great. But now it's like I want to have a reason. There's got to be a reason to be there. And it's just fallen in my lap that with this metal detecting stuff and, my YouTube fame, that I'm able to do it so easily now. It's just lovely. It's absolutely lovely.
So do you have a favorite place to go or places that you like to go back to?
I love
Arizona. Type of place?
I tell you, I go to southern Arizona. That's my favorite place, I think. Southern Arizona and I just love the desert out there. When I'm by myself, if I need to get away, that's where I go.
What types of things are you finding there?
I don't do as much metal detecting when I'm out there on my own for my own reasons. I love the Apache history and the Apache Wars history. And I will go out there and I'll search for these sites that I have researched where things happen, bad things, massacres or battles or surrenders. And I try to find these places that are usually, they're not marked. I mean, you just basically have something that a soldier wrote, 100 years ago describing the canyon they were in. And I try to find these places and just go there. I mean, not metal detecting. And just try to find it and go there and just sit there. Maybe read the dispatches from that era and the letters that were written from that area. That is my comfort. I really like doing that.
Wow, that's neat.
So I have a question for you. For the average traveler or a person who's just running around, some of the things that I like about watching your channel is those kind of just unique discoveries or something to look for that I never even thought about. You have any suggestions for somebody who is in a new place or going to a new place for the first time? How would they, or what should they do to try to find something that'd be unique or interesting to try to find out? You have any suggestions?
Yeah, it's real simple. Just take your blinders off. Everyone walks around with these blinders, or as they say in jolly old England, blinkers, like the things the horses used to wear. You put on the horses so you can't see.
Yeah.
Take those off and look around. I mean, even if you're not looking for artifacts or something like that, there's so much more. And you guys know this because you're travelers. You have taken those off and you're not just looking for the museum that you want to go visit. You're looking all around. You're looking in the back alleys. You're looking here. You're looking there. It's the same type of thing. Exactly what you guys are doing. Take them off. For me, if you want to find things, look at the ground. Spend time looking at the ground. There's so much stuff underfoot. When you're at one of those museums, just wander over to the flower beds and stuff if you can see dirt and just look. You'll see all kinds of stuff.
Crazy.
It's just taking those blinkers off or blinders off and just be observant. Just look. Make yourself look.
I tend to do that from a photography perspective because I'm always trying to get an angle that somebody's not gotten before, which is hard to do. You very rarely do it, but you look for it, and it does that. And that does that for me.
And
I know what you
that
mean.
is the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to the Eiffel Tower and get that shot that everyone's gotten, or like you say, you can take those blinders off and go outside of the box and try to make it a little bit different. It's the same thing with treasure hunting and the type of stuff that I do. You just have to look for something a little different, just not the straight and narrow.
Does that with people that have become into metal detecting? I know my brother-in-law has gotten into it in the last 4 or 5 years, and he's a fan of yours. Him and his best friend, and they're just local. They're from around here, from Jefferson County, and go to different places. And so, in fact, they've even gone in Tony's backyard here in Shepherdstown and found some coins and all. But I'm always
Uh-oh.
He asked. for that.
Both Tony and Brian live in town.
Okay. Yeah. See, I should have done some negotiating here.
You have the largest lot in town, don't you?
Both Tony and I have one of the larger lots in the town of
Really?
Shepherdstown.
He's all excited.
Yeah, so-
Oh yeah, we need to talk, man.
Actually, you can come back out here and hit the town run. You might find a bunch of stuff.
That's
there.
what he
I
was
already
talking
checked
about
it out.
earlier.
Yeah, I went down there looking at it on the way in.
But I think
We
it's
have to
neat
video it too.
that even though these people have metal detector, or maybe you've been there, other metal detectors have been there in the past, still going over these same types of grounds, just like Shepherdstown. I mean, I'm sure you've maybe not obviously all the lots here, but still there's stuff to be found even after all these years. And and I don't know what the numbers are of people doing it, but I think it's pretty cool. And maybe it's a little bit to what you're saying, just take the blinders off and look in a few new places. But what's your experience there? Why do you think, even if somebody's been there, they're still finding other stuff that wasn't uncovered before?
Well, unfortunately, once something is found, it's gone. It doesn't grow back. But, with metal detecting anyway, metal detecting, the technology changes with the metal detectors. So the ones we use today are so much better than the ones we used 20 years ago. But also, it's the individual. I think the individual knowing how to use the metal detector, the individual who is thinking outside of the box, and will look slightly differently than people in the past have looked, listens a little bit differently. So I think it's your life experiences that allows you to find stuff, even when you are in places that people have looked before many, many times. I mean, I think it's an accumulative thing, with your life experiences and being able to find stuff. And traveling's the same way. I mean, the more you travel, the more you know how to learn, the more you know how to enjoy it.
Yeah, I just planned a trip for 10 to Italy and had to cancel everything. So, boy, have I learned a lot. But hey,
That's a shame.
you're
It
postponing.
really is.
Postponing. We are.
Yeah.
Because you do want to go back, probably in the fall, if.
If they're still in Italy.
Yeah, I hope so.
There will be.
That kind of leads me. Your wife travel with you much? Does she ever travel with you?
No, not too much. Not on the trips that I would go on, like the metal detecting and YouTube stuff. No, she really hasn't.
Did you take her to
traveled.
Italy?
No. She's been. It's like I've been.
Oh, okay.
So,
I thought maybe it's wonder if she had a favorite place or one to go back to, or.
I don't know. I mean, our last trip we were in Europe, not too many, a couple of years ago, and we went it was a kind of a metal detecting trip. One of my fans actually invited me over. And, we went all over Europe. We were from England to France, Germany, Italy, and everything in between. We covered it all. And that was just a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, she does travel with me some, but not a lot.
That southern Italy landscape is a lot like Arizona.
It's dry. Yeah.
Oh, and Greece. I don't know if you've ever been to Greece,
Never
but
been.
it was so arid. We're in Santorini. They get 40-some inches of rain a year. It's very arid, weird climate, and right out in the middle of the sea. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's just
the world's a strange place.
It
isn't
is. It is a strange.
It's not what you
place.
expect all the time, is it? I just, I was in Australia and I was expecting desert everywhere, but it was not desert where I was. It was, rainforest, tropical, crazy stuff.
I lived in Nevada. I lived in Vegas for about 9 months. But what I do, you and I are a lot alike. I love to drive. I could drive for 15 hours. I really can, no problem. Just let me use the restroom, and I'll get back in the car. I could drive. It's never bothered me. And I like it when I can go flat out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
You've always liked to drive fast.
But I discovered
always scared
Nevada
me.
that way. I discovered Nevada's a beautiful state, and all people think of is Vegas. And I'm like, I love Vegas, and Vegas is great, but man, there's a lot to that place. It's a gorgeous state, very mountainous. Get out and see it. And it's not just a flat desert like everybody thinks a sandy
Right.
desert and dunes. It's not what it is.
Yeah, there is a lot. No, I've spent a fair amount of time out there, like looking for meteorites and stuff like that, and camping. And yeah, I like Nevada.
I brought some of those black rocks back from Nevada, and they're in my just because people don't realize that, and
Right.
they're so different, and you never. And I brought some back with me, and they sit in my yard, and
Yeah, cool.
everybody else walking by doesn't know what it is,
Right.
but I know what it is.
Right.
If you want me to tell you, I'll tell you, but I'll probably bore you to death, right, Beau?
Yeah.
So, Beau, have you found some meteorites in your hunting?
Yeah. I like to search for meteorites, and I found a fair number in Nevada with a metal detector, and I've also found with just my eyes freshly fallen meteorites.
How fresh?
Which is so cool. They were on the ground for a week.
You're kidding. How do you
Yeah,
know that?
there's a whole group of people that look for meteorites, and they watch the news, and if there's a fireball on the news, the people go to try to find them, because a lot of times those things explode in the air and they fall to the ground. And I was fortunate that one of my friends local was part of a group that found where they fell. And so it was in West Texas, the town of West. And that was, probably been 8 or 10 years now. But yeah, so I drive out to West Texas, and, just walking around on these cow pastures and stuff, and you could find these little black rocks that were meteorites that were in space, a week before,
Right.
and you pick them up, and you can smell them, and they smell like asphalt, like burning asphalt.
Wow.
That's just, I guess that's this scent of space. It's so cool that here you picked this thing up that's been in space for billions of years flying around.
Right?
And
now all of a
smell it.
sudden-
It smells
That's
like
neat.
asphalt.
Smells like
So I got like I got like a half a dozen of them or so.
All right, so I remember we're going back at least probably 10 years ago now and talking about all the stuff that you had collected over the previous 20, 30 years, and you were talking about running out of space for things at that point. So it's been a decade later, and you've gone to how many countries, and you're doing this all the time now. So where the hell do you keep everything?
Yeah, that has been a problem. I had a museum set up in my basement, big basement, and I like to put everything on display that I can, because a lot of people, they have it in boxes and stuff like that. You can't really enjoy it. You can't enjoy it as the owner, and it's really hard to show people when you're pulling out boxes, and it gets very boring. But so I put everything on display. You walk into my relic room, and the walls are covered with stuff. There's just stuff everywhere. That's the way it was. Right now, it isn't that way, because I did a TV show 2 summers ago, and I put everything away in storage because I was kind of freaked out that somebody would come rob me. And,
Right.
I haven't put it back out yet because I got to redo it because I have too much stuff. They're like, have to make an addition on the house. So I don't know what to do.
So out of all of these things that you've found
Yes.
over the year, do you have some favorites?
I do. My wife.
But
Got to use it. It's always, people always ask, what's your favorite find?
As long as you don't say that's your favorite relic.
Yeah, I
It's your
know.
favorite
I know.
find.
I always get disappointed. What's your favorite relic? I can't say it. I was listening to you.
I'm glad I asked the question.
Yeah, I'm glad too, because I was listening. I was like, my ears perked up.
So
What's it gonna
other
say,
than your
relic?
wife, can you tell us about a few of your favorite finds?
I think my favorite finds. I don't really have one that I can point to.
what comes to mind?
I like ID discs, the dog tags
Right.
of the Civil War era. Okay, because the soldiers during the Civil War did not have dog tags. They had to buy different things that they could inscribe their names on in their unit and whatnot if they wanted to. They didn't have to. I like finding those. I think that's the holy grail for me, is to find those things. Because when you get the soldier's name, and often these are really beautiful artifacts, and they'll have their name on it, their hometown, the battles they fought in, because the soldiers wanted all that. But you can look up those soldiers. There's great information online, this Smithsonian, I guess. And you can look them up, and you get all kinds of information about what they did, who they were, when their widows filed for their pensions, and they almost always did. After soldiers might have died 20 years after the war, There's reams of letters and stuff from their people they served with, from friends and family, and you learn so much about this guy. And here you are holding his ID disc, so you can put a really good story together, and it's a good history. So that's kind of one of my favorite things. I found some really cool artifacts, and they're cool, but you can't really make the story. You can't tell the story, unless you can, attribute it to a person. And when you can do that, it makes it special, I think.
And every find kind of has its own story. To me, like every photograph I see, there's a story behind a lot of them. I would assume it's the same type of thing with relics.
Absolutely. You find so many different things, and everything that's out there tells. There is a story behind it.
Mm-hmm.
A crow's foot battery. I found this thing in a creek over near Paw Paw or something. It's a weird looking thing that was in the creek. I actually found it and left it. A couple years later, I found it again. I said, I'll pick this. I'll take it home with me this time. So I took it home and I posted a picture or something, and it turns out it's a thing called a crow's foot battery. It's made out of zinc, and you know what? It looks kind of like a crow's foot, but that is how they made electricity to run the telegraphs on the railroad. Back during the Civil War era. You think about it, they had telegraphs, tap, 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 tap. Well, how did they have the electricity for that? How did they make electricity back then? Well, they had these zinc things that they would stick down in a jar of copper sulfate, and it made a slight electrical charge. And it would slowly dissolve over time. I have some that are almost completely dissolved. But yeah, a stupid little artifact that I literally threw back one time. What a great story. That's one of my favorite things. It's one of the things I pick up when people are looking at my collection that I can talk about. What do you think this is? Type
Right.
thing. No one has a clue. And most people, including myself, never really thought about how did they make electricity to run those things back in 1863.
Right.
But that's how they did it.
Thought they just plugged something in the wall.
I know, right?
Well, they kind of did.
Yeah.
But, it was a crow's foot battery and copper sulfate in a jar.
And you didn't know that until you found that piece
Not
and
a clue.
discovered it, right?
Not a clue.
That's
right?
really good.
Yeah.
That's neat.
Well, it helps to have a nice, good network of fans and people that you work with that you can throw that picture up there and they're like, I know what that is.
Yeah, I mean, the internet has changed everything. Almost everything I find I can identify really quick if I don't know what it is. I don't have one or two things that I haven't been able to identify yet, but yeah, it's changed everything. Even as far as researching, there's so much. The library, every library in the world, pretty much is in your computer now or on your phone. So it's just changed everything as far as researching places to look, where to go, where places you want to travel. Isn't it so much different now than it was 10, 20 years ago?
Oh, yeah. I like to complain about technology, but I hate to complain about it because it's gotten me, it helped me find my family in Italy. Without GPS, I never would have found it. And, things like that. I'm traveling through southern Italy alone, just by GPS, hoping to find this place. And without that technology, I never would have found it. Well, I might have on a map, but it wouldn't have been as easy. You just listen to her tell you where to go,
I know, I love that. I've almost ended up in a pond or a river once or twice.
I love how a lot of times you listen to it so blindly. I think we were on a trip and it says, take this next exit. And I'm looking over there and seeing the traffic backed up. But I'm like, it says to go that way. Okay. Like, really?
And you just stop. Oh, and you can't go backwards.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
So, anything dangerous
Oh, yeah. Snakes in Arizona.
artifacts that you found? Anything that you've
Yeah, sure. I like to look for artillery shells. Boom boom stuff. Civil War stuff is black powder, so it's not really that dangerous unless you're mess with it certain ways. But yeah, I found like World War II, World War I artillery shells close to here. I found one under the bridge, right over there.
Wow.
In Shepherdstown, where someone
Crazy.
pitched it over the side. And, the World War I, World War II bombs can be somewhat unstable. So those are dangerous. And you got to really be careful with those. And people find them all the time because people throw stuff in the river. They want to get rid of it, they throw it in the river.
when you find one of those, how do you handle it, or what do you do with it after the fact? Do you take it somewhere, or what makes it safe later?
Well, no, I will not, like World War I, World War II stuff. No, I pretty much leave in the bottom of the river.
Leave it there.
It's on display in his basement.
Yeah, typically I will hide it in such a manner that it will be very difficult to find from someone, even with a metal detector. You know.
Gotcha.
So how do you know if it's safe to even pick up or to move? Have you learned over the years, just looking at something, whether or not you feel like you can move it?
Yeah. I mean, you can move most anything. You know, it's not like in the movies where you breathe on it and it explodes. It's not like that. But yeah, there are some dangers, and I don't like put him in my car to take him someplace to hide him or anything. I don't do that. Like I said, Civil War stuff, which is what I'm really looking for and what I normally am finding, is not dangerous to move at all. I mean,
you find most of it in water, don't you?
Well, I find a lot of it in the water. Yeah, because people throw stuff in the water. You know, when they want to get rid of something, they pitch it in the river.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly, and I find lots of guns and artillery shells and stuff like that in the river.
So are there places, I mean, do you have to ask permission for many of the places that you go to? Are you ahead of time requesting permission, or do you know if you need to?
Yeah. Well, on land, you always have to have permission, unless you're in a place that just allows metal detecting, public property, which a lot of public property doesn't. Any federal property in the United States, whether it be battlefield or just BLM land, out west, national forest, you can't metal detect on it. If the federal government owns it, you cannot take any artifacts off of the property that's older than 50 years. So you find a penny from 1963, you can't take it. I mean, that literally is a felony if you pick that penny up and put it in your pocket, 1963 or whatever it is now. But yeah, so if you're on land, you pretty much have to have permission from the landowner, which is generally speaking pretty easy to do, as long as you're not in an area where there's tons of people metal detecting, like battlefield, like right on the battlefield areas like that. It can be a little bit dicey getting permission. In the rivers, all the waterways in the United States are owned by the various states. So every state has their own rules. Some states allow it, some states don't. Some states you have to have permits, some you don't. So you do have to know that.
And so I assume nowadays that's pretty easy to find out. You can.
It's not. Yeah, it's not as easy to find out as you think it would be, but it's becoming easier because there's so many people going in the water now. Back when I first started, I mean, no one looked in the water. When I first started metal detecting in the water, there was a small group of people that did it, but not many. But because of YouTube and me and others finding stuff, I mean, there's a lot of people going in the rivers now. So it's a little easier to find that information. What states you have to have permits. What states you don't. But I mean, the rules are kind of archaic because they're geared primarily toward the recovery of artifacts from shipwrecks. That's how the archaeologists got all these laws passed, was the shipwrecks and protecting shipwrecks and stuff like that. But it translates all the way back to the rivers and the streams, any public water. Now, not all water is public, naturally. There are, like the Pekin Creek, which is nearby. And West Virginia is public, but when you get into Virginia, it turns to private. So you have to have permission from the landowners, not the state.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, have you ever donated anything that you have found to it, or lent to a museum or anything? Anything that you thought, hey, this ought to be in this county's, museum or something?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I have, but most museums now don't want they don't want something on loan, and I've had a museum, local museums, when I've tried to loan things so that people can look at them, say, no, we either want it or not. Either it's ours or not. We're not going to be your storage facility, is what they actually told me. This is with some really cool artifacts, Williamsport, Maryland, that tied into the history of the town. I thought was great. I didn't really want to give it to them just yet, But they basically say go away. Go away. But you have to be really careful with museums because museums sell the stuff that you give them. There's no law against them selling stuff. So if they have if they have something that they love and it's on display for 2 years, and someone new comes in, decides they don't want to display that anymore, they sell it.
Yeah,
and they buy copiers or whatever they're buying.
Raise money.
Yeah, so it's good that it's out there for people to see, but generally speaking, my advice is, if you found it and you're happy to give the value away to the museum, fine. But, there are plenty of collectors out there that love the stuff that we find, that will cherish the things that we find, and you could sell it to them if you want to. I have never sold anything, but you could sell it to them or keep it in your estate like I have right now. My entire collection, I still have it. If something happens to me, my wife can sell it and it stays in the estate. So the proceeds of all this work that I've done over the years will stay in my estate for my wife or for my nieces and things like that. And it's not just given away for people to buy copiers or get a pay raise in a museum. I'm not saying that giving stuff to museums is necessarily a bad thing, but you really have to do your homework because they say, I've seen museums. There was a museum in Gettysburg. Tons of people donated the collections to recently, over the years. They closed, sold everything at auction. I have a good friend down in Alabama that has some of the most awesome relics you have ever seen that were donated to museums when the old-time relic hunter died, and they immediately turned around and sold them. And he bought most of the collection. It cost him a fortune. Gosh. But it's in his basement now.
He found it and bought it.
No. Oh. His old-time relic hunters found it. Okay. And donated it to museums. Their state donated it to the museum. And the museum turned around and said, we're going to sell these things, we don't want to display them. And a friend of mine, is an older guy who knew them and knew the value of these things, bought like most of the collection. But that money left the estate, that could have gone to the grandkids or whatever, and it went to the museum, and somebody got a raise probably. That's where the money went. So, but I have things that need to be. I do have some things that I feel need to be in museums, but it has to be the right one.
Sure. Now that's good advice. I know here at the Jefferson County Museum, my grandfather was a big antique gun collector, but way before he passed in like 1988. He had John Brown's gun, John Brown's handcuffs for when he went to the gallows, and they're still on loan in the family's name, in his name, at the Jefferson County Museum. So I sort of knew about that, but those are some good things to know about because obviously that was done a while back and the policies changed and that type of stuff.
Yeah, and it's wonderful that they did that and that they have them on display down there because those are priceless artifacts that tell a great story and are tied right into this area, the history of this area. But you do have to be cautious.
Sure.
Things disappear too in museums.
Yeah.
Up the road in Virginia a couple of years ago, they had a museum. They asked if I could put some stuff on display, and they were real excited about some of the stuff that I had found in the area. And I said, "Well, what kind of security do you have?" None. They got robbed like a year ago, and everyone that donated stuff is gone.
Wow.
The stuff's gone, so you do have to be cautious.
Sure.
Yeah, I didn't give them anything when they said they had no security.
Right. Yeah.
So forget it.
Right.
Do you have Do you have an actual count of cannonballs, bullets? You don't keep a running count, do you?
I don't keep a running count, but I have photographs of everything I've ever found,
right?
And videos of most of the stuff I found within the past 10 years. So I do have photographs of everything. I document where I find the stuff. Everything I have is let me just say I have certain ways I document. I don't want to tell everybody, but. Yeah, so if something got stolen, I could tell the police what to look for on certain artifacts. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I try to document everything I find, and if everything I find from like one location, I'll keep in a separate thing from that location. I think that's very important. In the beginning, I didn't do that. Most people don't do that. I mean, they just find stuff and this is cool. It ends up in a big bucket full of stuff, and you lose the provenance, and that's important to know where it came from. I think it's really important
I
to keep
agree.
that. If you can, it's tough when you have a lot of
Right.
little things, but
Right.
I think it's important to at least try.
Now, I remember a story, and I don't remember if this is prior to your YouTube or whatever, and Jim Reed and Terry Hall were the ones telling me about it, or somehow we got talking about it, and you had actually gone to, like, England and had come across some, like, an old Roman village or something and found a bunch of Roman coins and that type of stuff. I might be butchering the story because I did not check with them recently, and I'm testing a very faulty memory here. But that sounded familiar. And I was just, I was kind of in wow at the time. I was like, wow. I mean, Beau's really gotten onto something there. I'm not sure how he got into that and then fell upon this, but is any of that story somewhat true? And if so, can you elaborate a little bit on it?
Well, I think I know what the story that you're talking about. Now, I go to England a lot. I've metal detected over there many, dozens and dozens of times. Found lots of Roman artifacts and, Celtic artifacts. But I think the story you're referring to is on one of my trips there, I actually found a Roman villa, which was, the main house to an estate that no one knew was there. I mean, the archaeologists didn't know it was there. And, I just happened to find it in the field because they used lead pipes, and I got a big signal down there and dug it up, and there was these lead pipes under, right at the plow line, and kind of dug around a little bit, and that's what it turned out to be, an unknown Roman, villa, which was kind of cool,
Yeah.
But the archaeologists came in there afterwards, and I'm not exactly sure what happened, but I'm sure they did that. Pieces of floor tile, and it was really awesome. But yeah, those things are out there, and people find them all the time. Just unknown things like that.
Now, in a situation like that where you're on foreign soil, are you able to keep any of the spoils of what you find, or how does that work? Are there any rules, laws?
Yeah, every country has different rules. The UK, I say England all the time, but it's the UK. Well, no, actually it is England because the UK has different rules, different countries over there. But like in England, when we go over, and it's a really big destination for travelers. For metal detecting people go to England. I mean, there's thousands of people that go over there on tours and whatnot to look for stuff. Yeah, they have a really good setup over there where you get to keep everything unless the museum wants it. Okay, if like one of the museums wants an artifact, and it has to be a really special artifact because they have to buy it from you. Okay, so say you find some gold artifact that the museum wants, they have to have it appraised, and you get to keep half of the money, and the landowner gets half of the money. But that doesn't happen very often. For the most part, the Roman coins and the Celtic coins, and I found some really cool like gold coins from 50 BC, Celtic coins, a lot of them. And you get to keep it all.
Nice.
And it has to go through an export process, and it can take a month or two, but you get to keep it all.
Now, along those lines, and I'm assuming it's going to be close, what is the oldest artifact that you can identify as far as a date or something?
I have a Celtic coin that was 200 BC.
Wow.
Now, I have found other
Found
artifacts.
where?
In England.
Okay.
Yeah, in England, naturally.
Yeah.
Now I found artifacts that are much, even older than that. Of course, here you can find artifacts that are 10,000 years old, 12,000, Indian artifacts, stone artifacts. But as far as like a coin or something that the archaeologists could date, 200 BC. Yeah.
Legible, you can. It's
Well, it doesn't say 200 BC.
I know it
on
doesn't say that, but does it have writing on it?
Yeah, well, it has figures on it.
Okay.
So they know what reign, who was in, what would have been king in the Celtic times, I guess. But yeah, they can figure. They know about when it was made. They could say it was made between 200 and 220 BC. Yeah.
So, what do you have any place coming up of a big trip or a place you're going to go or you got scheduled that you want to?
Yeah, it's really sad because I had a trip planned to Italy and Russia coming up, but with the COVID-19 scare, I'm not going to go. I don't know. I was going to go with the Garrett Metal Detecting Company. I don't know if they're still going to go or not. I'll try to go, but I told them I don't want to risk it because, boy, I tell you, being packed on those airlines nowadays is so. I get sick like half the time, it seems. I've been lucky the last 3 or 4 times. I haven't, but boy, I tell you, it seems like I always come down with something after that trip, and it's a little scary right now. A month from now, who knows? But I'm not going to go.
Well, then a follow up. Do you have Do you have like this place that you would really love to go that you haven't been to yet, or a place that you would like to?
No. You know why? I'm going to tell you, because I can go. I can go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't have any place except Antarctica. I guess Antarctica. I like to go look for meteorites in Antarctica.
That's a little different. Terry Hall wants to go to Antarctica, so I guess you won't be.
I want to look for meteorites there. There's got to be a reason, meteorites. But they, it's a scientific thing, and they don't let you do that. So,
No.
yeah.
The rules for
Hey,
everything.
you didn't ask me about my TV show.
Oh, we need to do that.
Yeah. So So
Hey, what about your TV show?
yeah, my TV show. I did a TV show called River Hunters 2 summers ago.
I was going to ask. Yeah,
it's
because
on
I was
the
going to
list.
ask how was it working with the History Channel. So boom, there you go.
Yeah, well, I wasn't actually. I didn't really. Well, I did work with the History Channel, but it was a production company that was working. Well, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. It was a great show. Had a lot of fun. I got giardia during that time.
Really?
Lost 23 pounds.
Holy
Couldn't eat for
camoly.
weeks. I was so sick. And
wow.
yeah, I was like when I came home, I was gone for 2 months. My wife didn't even recognize me. Standing at the airport,
man.
I was so gaunt and old looking, But it was fun. It was such a good time, and we didn't do it the last year, but they're still going to try to do it again this year. So we don't know just yet, but hopefully that will.
So what
work
was
out.
the name of that?
It's River Hunters.
River Hunters.
Yeah, it was on the History UK, History UK.
Okay. And how many did you do? A number of episodes?
We did 8.
8 episodes.
8 back to back, solid, and it was so hard. The water is so cold over there. And of course, I was sick.
What bodies of water were you in? Just some popular
gosh,
ones.
Yeah, rivers, lots of. I mean, it was so.
You were
neat
on the Thames too, weren't you?
We didn't actually do the. Well, we might have done the upper, yeah. But again, I don't have to plan anything. They do all the research and stuff, and we just show up. So, but we, right below castles, places you would never be able to metal detect. We're finding I guess one of the better finds was we found a bronze axe. I don't know, 4,000 years, 7,000 years. I don't even remember anymore. In the river, but the thing was pristine.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, just beautiful stuff over there.
I bet that made for good production value. I'm sure they made it so and I didn't see the episode, but we found something good. I don't know how they said it,
Yeah,
but
of course.
they brought it up.
That's how they do it. Yeah, that's how they do it. But everything we found was donated to the local museums and stuff. So it was fun, and we always had archaeologists with us. So they would actually metal detect with us. But it was a really good time, and I hope we do it again this summer.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
That's great. And another was there another TV show, or is this the River Hunters? That was the one.
Yeah. That was the one. I've only done the one TV show. Try to do a lot of them, but the networks are really picky. They're really picky as to what there's got to be something special about it.
Well, how did that one come about?
I have to tell you a story, huh?
I was saying, how did that come about? The fact that you end up with the TV show,
River Hunters, YouTube. Yeah, the production.
So they
people.
reached out to you and said,
Yeah. But I get contacted a lot. Sometimes it depends, but I get contacted a lot. In fact, I shot a pilot for another show just recently. I got to tell you this story. I guess I can tell the story now since the network didn't pick it up. But anyway, so it was in New York City, all right, and on the can't remember what side. It was not on New York, not the city side, but across the river, and there's a canal there called the Gowanus Canal. Supposed to be the most polluted canal in America, the most polluted waterway in America is Gowanus Canal. That's where they dump, the mob would dump the bodies. It's just a disgusting place. And well, anyway, part of the show was that we're in there looking around with metal detectors, and I was in there, and one of the guys there had a big magnet, right, and he got stuck on a bulkhead. So I said, I'll go get that, So I jumped in this canoe. I went to get this magnet that was stuck, and it wouldn't come loose. I mean, I'm pounding on it with a hammer, and then, just trying to pry it loose. And of course, naturally, it eventually came loose, right? But it rolled me in the canoe, and I went underwater, in this place, Gowanus Canal. I mean, oh my God, it was so gross. But I was lucky. I was so lucky because the water actually wasn't that bad that day. Okay. That night it rained, and we had to go back to the Gowanus Canal, to shoot some more because it was a couple days there. And because it had rained, they decided that they could let all the raw sewage out. Okay,
Oh, my.
so they had what they called the purge, where they opened the gates and all the raw sewage. So we're canoeing, having a good time, and they hadn't opened the gates yet, right? And then all of a sudden, this wall of crap hits us. I mean, it's literally, just feces, logs, and just condoms, and it stunk so bad. Oh, it was hideous. And I thought to myself, boy, I tell you, if I had fallen in the water that day, it would eat me alive.
Right.
It would eat me alive.
You'd come back with a lot worse than what would you have before?
I know. I was so thankful that I fell in when it wasn't too bad.
You looked at that guy and said, sorry.
I had everything. It had gonorrhea in there. Yeah. Everything. It's just horrible.
I'd be like, buddy, sorry, your magnet's lost. It's done.
Bo, whatever you do, don't roll this boat.
Yeah, iguana's gonna. That's horrible. Anyway, it was fun though. I had a good time.
So how would a beginner get started? Do you have a recommendation for some basic equipment and maybe what to do to if you want to go out and explore a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Watch my videos.
And where do you find them?
No, really, seriously.
Where do you find your videos?
Yeah, Aquachigger on YouTube.
Okay.
Type in Aquachigger, and there I'll be.
There you go.
But anyway, when I first started, you didn't have that. But now you do. Now you can go to YouTube and you can see videos. You can learn so much about how to do ththings and where to look. And so, start there.
I call YouTube the greatest reference the world ever created.
I use it all the time for, when I'm want to work on my truck and stuff.
Look, I'm not a reader, man. I'm a watcher. I learn by watching and seeing things. I learn through these. Sorry, I'm different. So, I like to watch it. Yeah. And if I can watch a video, because I like to cook, cooking's the same way. Right. It's the greatest reference the world ever created. Yeah. It really is.
Yeah. So if you want to get into exploring and metal detecting, jump on YouTube and watch some of the videos, and you'll learn a lot just really quickly. It won't take you years.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Good piece of advice.
Awesome. Yeah.
Well, what do you think?
That was quite an interview. Yeah.
Anything we left out?
We're wrapping up already?
Well, anything we left out there?
We can go.
What else did you miss?
Well,
no, I'm done.
We are going to record an adult version after this for our subscribers.
Bonus coverage.
Bonus. I'm sorry. I said adult.
Get the shot glasses out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bonus coverage. I have something I want to say in bonus coverage too. I got a little
bonus.
Something I want to tease you about.
Bonus.
So we'll just go into bonus coverage now.
Well, let's tidy this up a little bit.
Oh shoot, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Before we get into bonus coverage, first of all, I want to thank Beau for coming over, the Aquachigger. Do you want to give one last shout out to your sponsors, your YouTube channel, your TVs, real quick to let our listeners hear again?
First I want to thank you guys for having me. This has been a lot of fun, and I really appreciate you inviting me. And again, my YouTube is Aquachigger, and Facebook is Aquachigger. Jump over there and subscribe, and all that follow stuff. Whatever Absolutely. They say nowadays.
Awesome. Well, we certainly appreciate you coming in, taking your time out of your busy schedule. This will wrap up this week's podcast of Friends That Carry On. Obviously, you can catch us at www.friendsthatcarryon.com or at Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at friendsthatcarryon.com. Our next podcast, we're going to do another interview, and this one is with John Hemingway, which is Ernest Hemingway's grandson. We've become friends with him in Pamplona, Spain. He just wrote a new book called Bacchanalia. Hopefully I said that right. And I've really enjoyed it, and we're looking forward to talking to him on our next podcast. So stay tuned then. And for those who have subscribed to the website, stay tuned for bonus coverage.
Bye, everybody.
Arrivederci.
Thanks, Beau.
Thank you.
Thank you.